Hello friends, welcome to the first official coming back booktube video. My name's Sam, and this is the shenanigans of, we're gonna say, most of what I read in January. We're gonna kind of talk about the novels that I read and kind of skip over some of them, just because they weren't necessarily novels. So one of the first things that I read in January was I read The Keeper of Enchanted Rooms by Charlie and Holmberg, and this is the start of the third series by them that I have read. I really like their writing. It's very enchanting and to me at least, has a lot of childlike wonder, but not done in a way that is very childish, if that makes sense. So the background of a Keeper of an Enchanted Room is that there is this company that goes and helps wrangle in houses that have been enchanted. Whether it's a hunting or just kind of magic gone chaotic. And there's a certain house where our main character, Hulda, goes, and it's one of the last few enchanted houses out there that has not already been whipped into shape and having a staff in it, because it has just been newly brought to our other main character, Merritt. And I just say there's lots of hijinks. There's an unexpected romance, a little bit of heartbreak, and just all around kind of chaotic good, I think, except for, the bad guy of the story. But I thought it was really interesting the way she did it, and the way she brings this house to life, and it has so much personality, and it truly does feel like a character, which kind of gets explained later on in the story. It is going to be a part of a trilogy. The last book actually comes out, I do believe, on February 27th of this year. Do not quote me on that, but I do know it comes out in February. So then the next 5 books that I've read, I reread the ACOTAR series in preparation for the new Crescent City book that came out the end of January. It's going to be a little spoilery talking about ACOTAR here. If you have not read ACOTAR is about our main character, Feyre, who kills a wolf, skins him, and then has a very, very angry shifter fae come to her home and go, "You have a debt to pay." That being Tamlin. We're gonna call him Tamlin, because I'm awful with pronunciations. And things are not a fairy tale. Not by any means. She ends up falling in love with him. He falls in love with her. Things are okay for all of a few chapters. And then he sends her back to the human lands. He kicks her out of the Fae world, out of the Spring Court, and goes, "You need to be safe. You're going back to the human world." That does not sit well with Feyre. No, it does not. And she goes back. She goes back to try to get her man. A lot happens. There's a worm, illiteracy, problem, bunch of other things. Death, a little hurrah, a little that, and a little bit of rebirth. And not gonna go too much into the series, because I know there are some people that still have not read ACOTAR. My personal opinion, A Court of Thorns and Roses, the first book, is difficult to get through. It is not the funnest of the reads, but I do highly recommend it. I highly recommended getting through into the second book, meeting the rest of the characters from that series, because it is so worth it. And if you want to read Crescent City, like, I need to read Flame and Shadow, Shadow and Flames, you're going to want to read ACOTAR, because crossover, things are going to be spoiled for that series, and you don't want to miss out. You don't want to lose that and then go back and go, "Oh, well, I know how this ends up." It makes it so much less fun to read. But I will probably do a more detailed video about the Crescent City book, do a little spoilery, my full-on thoughts, because I do have a lot of feelings about that. And, yeah, highly recommend the ACOTAR series. Just push through book number 1. I promise you the payoff is worth it. After I reread all of ACOTAR, the next 2 books I read, technically, are 2 different short stories. One is called The 6 Deaths of the Saint. I wanted so much more. It was so interesting. I did not know how they were going to pull off a full-on story in 30 pages. Like, I get the idea of a short story, but, like, this one packed a punch. Holy shit. It is on Amazon Kindle Unlimited, and also as well as just if you have Prime, you can do it from Prime Reading. But it was so good. I cannot think of the author's name, but I will put the book with the author's name over here. And then it's a set of short stories, but they're all different stories, different authors. That one was personally the best one I read. The second one I read was called Persephone. I felt lost. I was like, this, after reading such an amazing one and then going to this and just being like, there are so many plot holes that I don't even have a fraction of an information to make an inference and put pieces of this puzzle together to make the story click for me. So that one, I personally would definitely say to pass. And I don't know, it might be for you, but I would recommend at least checking it out, because again, just because it didn't click for me doesn't mean it won't click for you. After the 2 short stories that I read, I decided I was going to read One Dark Window and Two Twisted Crowns by Rachel Gillig. I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly. Maybe, let me know. Pronunciation is not my strong suit. So this story is about a young woman named Elsbeth, and in her world, magic. You get the mist, it comes for you. It gives you magic. That is not a good thing. You do not want that. And this is where our character, Magic, things are not aligning. She touches a Providence card, which is cards that are made of magic, and she absorbs the memories or the consciousness of a card called the Nightmare card. And you learn this in like the first few pages, so I promise it's not too much of a spoiler. And things just kind of go downhill. You find out her birth mother has passed away. Her father cares about her, but she does not live with him. The stepmother, not a fan. And she kind of gets pulled into going to this celebration at the castle with the king, with her family and her extended family that she lives with. And some weird things start to happen. There's a love story, which just felt so rushed, and I didn't want there to be a love story. I personally wanted there to be more about the magic systems and what was going on, and what about these Providence cards, and give me more history about them and how they were passed down. And so, as always, things do be happening because it's part 1 of a duology, and it felt rushed to a point for me. And in book 2, we're falling more with that romance and with another romance blooming, and I was just like, I don't really know if I want this. I wanted the magic and the sword fighting and the political aspect, which usually I'm not super into, but I felt like this story had so much potential to do that, and it just kind of fell flat for me. But again, I do know that this was a very beloved duology. A lot of people were super into it, but just for me personally, not my jam. But I do think this author has potential, and I will read whatever book she puts out next, because I don't think she's put out anything. And for the last 2 things I read last month, the only thing, besides being the Crescent City book, I read Belladonna and Foxglove by Adalyn Grace. So the plot behind the story is that our main character, Signa, I thought her name was pretty interesting, by the way, her family dies at a party. Her family, like her mother, father, and everybody that's at this party when she was a baby. Death could not touch her, though. You find that out in the first, 3 pages. I was like, okay, cool. What's going on with this baby? She has Reaper powers, and it seemed like it was going to be very gothic, supernatural, like, mystery, and it fell more into the Regency category. Like, they're talking about, oh, I have to be a proper lady and do this at tea and do this, and it bored me. If I wanted Regency, I would have went more with a book that was aimed at that. I wanted that supernatural gothic feel. I wanted that so desperately from this book. And this is where we're gonna go into, like, real big spoiler town. Death was a creep, okay? First and foremost, Death was a creep. And now, I don't even know. So Death has followed this girl, okay? Whether she genuinely knew he was there or just noticed that everybody around her, who was her caretakers, because she was going to be coming into a huge fortune when she aged and could go out into society and all that jazz. And he just, like, followed her. And I saw somebody describe it, and it was perfect. He groomed her. He was grooming this character, because eventually she eats some Belladonna. Deadly nightshade is the other name for it, for folks who do not know. And she can see him because she's dying. Except she doesn't actually, because she has Reaper powers, and for whatever that means, that Belladonna does not affect her. And they go, and she's at first trying to fight him. She's like, you've ruined my life. You kill everybody who tries to take care of me. People think there's something wrong with me. Which, I mean, sure, if death is following you, yes, there's something suspicious going on there. And then somehow it just takes this turn that she, like, is falling in love with Death, and they hook up. Like, when she's in the half-dead state, because she can't, when she's fully, like, healthy and normal, like, she can't see him or interact with him. So it was very strange that all of a sudden I'm reading this book and then she's fucking Death, for lack of a better way to brace that subject. And she's trying to find who's poisoning her cousin, who poisoned, I think it's her cousin. The one she's originally trying to find. And then she's trying to find out who poisoned the other cousin, Violet. And it felt so awkward to read, because I was just like, I can't move past that this was, you were going to go for this for a romance. I'm so confused. But I digress. By the end of Belladonna, she finds out who did the poisoning. Finds out it's Percy. Takes care of that. Now, we move on to Foxglove. Foxglove is the second book in the trilogy. And now, they're having a party celebrating Violet, who has recovered from her illness, which was poisoning. That she can come back into society, like things are better at the Hawthorne home, which is Violet's family name. And all of a sudden, some hoity-toity prince-looking man shows up and frames her father of murder. How? Poisoning. What is with the poisoning thing? I don't know. And so, we go. Cigna, again, is saying, alright, like, I need to find out what's going on. I'm gonna save this family. I'm gonna save my family. And it's just, she's awful. Like, we're still dealing with the Regency thing. She's, like, less, I don't know, I feel like she's less of a character. And the same thing with Death. As ferocious as he was in Belladonna, because he's in love with Cigna and wants to protect her, and, like, again, they hook up. He's, like, running around with his figurative tail between his legs at the hoity-toity prince man, who we find out is his brother. Fate goes, Cigna is my wife reincarnated, who you murdered. So there's that plot line. The only thing that saved this book was the cousin Byleth. She was the only thing that kept this whole goddamn book going, because the only way I could describe it, honestly and truly, is a car crash. You know, when a car crash is so bad that you just can't look away and you have to keep watching as you're, like, driving by. That's what reading this book, these two books, felt like. There is going to be a third book called Wisteria coming out. I believe it comes out later this year, 2024. I will be reading that only because it is supposed to be about, or at least I have the feeling that it'll be more about the cousin Byleth. And her story was what was interesting. I did not care about any of the other characters. Like, I did not care for the main girl besides the fact that her name was interesting. Read the third book, but I just... Again, another series that was so highly recommended and talked about, and it was just such a disappointment. And it was rough. It was rough, folks. I'm not gonna lie. I do apologize for how kind of awkward and clunky this video probably will turn out. It has been about 2 years now since I have attempted to make any book content. I'm also working and having a new space and needing to upgrade my setup a little bit. So I hope you will bear with me and be kind. Please let me know what you thought about these books. Maybe there was something that I'm missing in a key detail that maybe I was just right over my head. Or maybe you had the same thoughts as me. Let me know. Let's talk about it, because I've been dying because I haven't had anybody to talk about these books with. And they'll be linked below, be my Discord server, because I do also stream, so you'll see some game content on there. There's a whole channel to talk about books. If you'd like, come and join us there and just holler about all of them, please. I would be so happy to have you. And again, apologies for the clunkiness of this video, but thank you so much for tuning in. And I will see you next time. I hope you have a wonderful day. Go drink some water.